Well, how's it going, guys? Today's video is going to be a little bit different today. I remember just being, a kid, grabbing whatever tackle I had and just heading to the pond for, an afternoon, or maybe it was after school or something like that. So that's kind of the theme of today's video, is going to be exactly that. Just kind of heading out to the pond, fishing for a few hours, fishing from the bank. Usually I'm all geared up and doing the whole kayak tournament scene, but just want to do kind of like a throwback video to when I was a kid, and it's kind of just going to the bank with whatever I've got. I've got just one rod with me today, just a simple spinning rod, something that I would have had when I was a kid. And then I've got just whatever lures kind of laying around. I've even got them in a makeshift bag, just kind of to my hip there. And not going to go all fancy, just going to throw what I've got. I've got a couple of jigs, some stick worms, and maybe a small swim bait, something like that. But let's go into that local community area, kind of throw around, see what we can get into. So let's get to it. All right, so we got this whole dock here, but the one thing I do know about this dock is that there's a little trough that runs underneath here, and then it gets shallow there and shallow here. So I'm just going to start out with a jig and see if I can get anything just kind of swimming on those pylons. The sun's come up, so we've got maybe some bass that are orienting to shade lines. We'll see. But fishing a 1/4 ounce homemade jig. I'm starting to play around with the patterns, tying my own jigs. I'm probably going to put them out on my page here pretty soon. For those of you guys who want custom handmade, hand poured, hand tied, hand selected materials and patterns, it's going to be on my site soon. But just playing around with a few. I took one out the other day, got into about a 6.5 pounder pretty quickly after fishing it. I don't know if today's going to be the same way or not, but man, wouldn't that be nice? Well, that's not going to be good. Yeah, it's different when you're throwing a spinning rod versus a bait caster. One thing I do like about this jig that I've been developing myself, is that I've been able to get it to sink pretty slow. So in cold temperatures, it's perfect for those bass that want something just kind of slowly drops, doesn't just shoot to the bottom and kick up a bunch of dust. It kind of moves more natural, I think, in my opinion. Oh yeah, it is. It's crazy. It's like crystal clear. Like pitching with the spinning rod. Don't know if anything's hanging around this stump or not. There was one year I was here. The reason I know about this stump being here is I came out here one winter trying to work on a fly pattern that I had been working on specifically for winter fly fishing. First cast, hooked it to that stump, snagged it. So stripped down to my boxers and actually waded out there to get it back. And there's people that came out on this dock, and they really did look at me like I was crazy, because it was just winter time, snow all around the ground, and I'm sitting there in my underwear crawling onto this stump to get the fly off of it. But didn't really want to lose that fly. All right, nothing there. Nothing on that stump. I think I hit it pretty good, so I'm going to go to this point right here. This little natural bend. There's probably a little deep pool or pocket in there. Maybe these bass, if anything's in here, is feeding off of this break. The funny thing is like when you go and you pond fish, or you fish in these little community lakes, the one thing that you can do is you can still apply big lake tactics to small ponds. There's still going to be breaks. There's still going to be points. There's still going to be drop-offs. There's still going to be, channels. Like this whole thing right here is a channel. So you would consider that the main lake. You consider out there the main lake, and this would be kind of like an oxbow lake or a oxbow pond or a secondary channel. And you just fish it the same way you would the main lake. So if you guys, those of you who like to watch the YouTube channels and videos of these big bass guys going around fishing these big boats on these big lakes, and you're thinking, well, that doesn't really apply to me, you can actually still learn how to fish your local ponds and lakes and communities. Just apply it to a smaller scale. They're doing big lake tactics, and that's all right. You can do the same thing on your small little ponds. Look for the cover, look for grass, look for points, look for drop-offs. Like right there, I know I've got a little bit of grass. Right there, I just hit some grass. Or, a pile of like algae or something like that. Something really soft. Most of because this whole pond is man-made, a lot of it is going to be rock and concrete bottom. I believe, if I remember my history correctly, this used to be an old quarry. So, and then it was donated by a family to the community. And so they gave it to the city of Boise as a community pond. But it used to be a quarry. It used to be, I believe it was the Quinn family. So I'm just watching my line, waiting until it hits bottom. There's bottom. Just kind of feeling the structure that I'm fishing. That's the other thing with all these guys that have this high tech, forward facing sonar, 360, side scan, all that stuff. It shows them basically what's around them, on a screen. But there's something to be said about doing it the old school way, which is just dragging a Texas rig or dragging a jig and putting that map together in your mind as you fish it back. So it's good practice. It's an old school way. And right now, coming back on this retrieve, I didn't feel a ton of grass. I felt just a little bit, but it all felt kind of dead. That's the other thing that's interesting when you're dragging a jig or dragging a Texas rig or something like that, something that's hitting the bottom a lot. You'll actually be able to decipher between live grass and dead grass. The dead grass is a little bit more mushy, doesn't really hold on to your jig or your lure. The live grass, you can actually feel the stems, you'll feel the hard stalks of the live grass. So a lot of times you can tell if there's live grass or dead grass before you even get that jig back to you. And then obviously if you snag some of it, you'll be able to tell. You'll be able to look at the color and see if it's bright green and looks healthy, or if it's just dead brown mush. That's the other thing that I should talk about real quick, is that, when you do come to places like this, any place, any lake, river, community pond, whatever it might be, in the colder parts of the year, it tends to get lower water. So the water levels are a lot lower. Start mapping out things in your mind where stuff is. So just like this stump that's here, in the springtime, the water is going to be probably up above these rocks right here. So you'll know there's a little protected area right there, hard bottom, stump, rocks. That would be a perfect spot for a bedding bass. I would almost guarantee that a bass is going to bed down right there. So bed down, like I'm talking about, like deer. But yeah, they would most likely make a bed right around that stump. That's just too good. So you got hard bottom, you got probably deep enough water in the springtime, you've got rocks that are going to bring a little bit of heat, you've got protection. Yeah, there's going to be a bass they're going to spawn right on next to that stump. So you can put these maps together in your mind when the water levels are low, and if that's your pond, that's your community spot, that's where you like to fish a lot, well, start putting together that map. And in fact, what I used to do as a kid, is I used to take a notebook with me, and I used to draw out, points. When they were low, I would sit there and draw it out, just sketch it out. Nothing real too detailed, but just enough to kind of be like, from this rock that sticks out here, here's a stump that's about like, 4 to 5 feet off the bank, etc. And then next season, I'd just reference that notebook and do pretty well. I know about spots and rocks and stumps that other people didn't. Also, places to avoid. So, if you've got like a shopping cart underneath the water, that's a good place to catch a bass, but it's a bad place to throw something like a jig or something that's going to get hung up on it. Throw something else like a Texas rig or something that's going to not get caught up on the metal cart. Because once you get a jig caught on a metal rung like that, or like a post, because of the brush guard, it's pretty much locked in there. It's hard to really get that thing out, which is also why a jig is good to fish with, and heavy cover and other things. Because once that bass takes it and you get a good hook set, you're gonna get a good hookup ratio too. A lot of times you will be able to catch those bass as long as you get them to bite it. Because that weed guard helps to pin that hook in there. This is another reason why to look at your weed guards on the hooks that you guys are buying. Like I said, I'm developing my own jigs, but I'm putting stiff weed guards on mine. Not overly stiff, but stiff enough to where, I want it to be able to come through cover fairly easy and kind of bounce off the cover or ricochet off the cover or work through the cover. Because when you set a hook, it's completely different than just dragging it through cover. When you set a hook, that weed guard's going to depress for just a little bit, or that bass bites down on it, and that hook's going to get through the cheek of that bass. But then that weed guard's going to be on the outside of it or the opposite side of the hook. A lot of times will just help secure that hook in place. It won't let that hook kind of move around a lot and give that bass a chance to throw it. So just look at your weed guards when you're buying jigs. If you can, take them out of the package, press them down with your thumb. I personally don't like extremely light weed guards. I just think it's kind of a waste. The only time I would really use a light weed guard is maybe if I'm throwing out a bedded bass and I can see it, and that maybe that bass is around like a pile of sticks. Then I might. But I'd want to visually be able to see where that jig is coming through on those sticks. Because on a bass that's bedded down, a lot of times they'll just nip at it and drop it. So I do want them, if I'm using a jig, if they nip at something, that hook is going to get exposed, and the tip of that hook is going to just find its way into a little bit of skin. So that's the only time that I would probably ever use a extremely light weed guard on a jig. Although I tend to not fish a jig on bedded bass. It's very rare that I do that. So usually I'll just use a flipping hook in a trailer in a Texas rig. That thing sinks so good. It sinks at a slow rate, but it still gives action to the trailer. I love it. I love it. It's like a perfect, slow, finesse presentation on that jig. So again, if I had my notebook, I'd be putting in a note right here. There's a cement formation under the water here. It looks like all poured concrete. And there's a dip here, so there's this high spot right here. It gets low. There's some man-made concrete stuff right here, some chunk rock right there, and a deep drop-off right there. I'm actually surprised I didn't get a bite coming back through here. This is perfect for a bass to move up and down in the water column during winter time. Oh, there's one right there. right in front of me. And it looks like he has a blind eye on this side too. So if he does, he doesn't even see me. He's looking at it. He's actually, it's funny because he's actually playing in my shadow. He's got some weird eyes. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I think this bass is blind. Like 100% blind. I think he's going off of sensations. Come on, bite it, dude. I want to just get a look at your eyes. This is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I mean, I've got this bass sitting right here in this cloud of just, I'm flicking this jig over and over, and he's definitely got his mouth like right next to it. But he's not nipping at it, not biting at it. But he's definitely, I think he's blind. I think he's, oh, he just slammed the bottom and missed the jig. He just, like he was trying to pick up a crayfish, but I wish I had my waterproof GoPro so that I could show you guys what he looked like underwater, because I mean, he was not scared of the jig, and he was interested in the motion. It was like every time I'd flick it in the water, I think he could probably feel it on his lateral line, and he would kind of like key in on it, but but it was dancing in front of his nose, and he wouldn't even touch it. All right, guys, I'm gonna switch up lures just because I haven't really got anything on the jig yet. That sun is about to be well overhead, so I'm gonna actually throw around a rage tail swim bait with a 1/4 ounce 3/0 hook on it. That 3/0 hook, I feel like it gives it the most tail action, and but it still allows a beefy enough hook to get those bass. And try to pitch around some laydowns and whatnot. I don't have my bait casting rod. I just brought this one rod, like I said, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. I'll see if we can even get a bite first, but then if we do get a bite, don't know what that hook set is going to be like, and I don't know what that fight is going to be like on a spinning rod and a swim bait. So I've just got my drag set about right, I think, for this setup. And should be good to go. See how it goes. If we don't lose it right there. Okay, good. We didn't lose it. I'm going for a big bass. That's what I'd like to find today. I know there's a lot of different species in this water, so I feel confident that they eat fish, and they eat fish a lot. A lot of their forage has got to be bait fish. So looks fairly shallow in here. Just keep that rod tip nice and high. That way the point of your hook is not digging in or under something. Just nice and easy. Ooh, there's a tag. Yeah, there we go. Let's see if we can get him over the water. One more log, buddy. Come on. One more log. Yes. That's the swim bait bite that I want. That'd just be a lot better on a bait caster instead of a spinning rod. Oh, goodness, dude. Yeah, look at that. Wow. Look at that bass. Man, that is a healthy bass. Look at the belly on this thing. I bet you, man, what does that thing weigh? It probably weighs about It's gotta weigh about 8 pounds, man. Yeah, that's an 8-pound bass right there. You know, that's the second bass I've seen. Look at that eye though. You see that in his eye? It's the second bass I've seen. It looks like they've got something on their eyes. He's only got one good eye. Healthy for how big he is though. Man. Yeah, I'll let you go here in a second. This thing's got to be at least 8 pounds. Something like that. I mean, that thing is huge. Look at the size of this thing. It's got to be 8 pounds or more. I'll let him go back in. There he goes. You know, like I said though, that's the second bass I've seen. There he goes. He's underneath there. He's gonna rest up right underneath there. Second bass I've seen with their eyes. Something going on. That first bass had something all over its eye and it was blind. So that drag worked, but not the way I thought. So I was going to keep it a little bit longer than that. But I'll be able to fight it just a little bit longer than that. Check our lines. All right, we're good to go. Now, the common thing is if there's one bass in that area, a lot of times there's two. But, you know, see, that's what I was saying about like the jig compared to the swim jig, or to the swim bait. So I thought that bass that was blind, it was definitely reacting to the jig, but it was reacting when it was above it, not so much below it. And that kind of gave me the hint, like, this bass might be feeding on stuff that's above them. That's got to be an 8-pound bass right there. I need to get myself a scale so I can start weighing these things, because that could have broken the Idaho record. I mean, the Idaho record is not that big. All right, well, the GoPro overheated, which is, you know, if you guys own a GoPro, you know what I'm talking about. Makes no sense right here, and it's probably, you know, 45 degrees, and GoPro's overheated. It makes no sense. Well, hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of some bank fishing. You know, normally I don't do that kind of stuff. I usually am on a kayak or something like that, but, you know, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. This was just having a lot of fun. Normally I wouldn't do this kind of stuff. Normally I'm fishing those tournaments that you guys have seen me in, and but this kind of brings us back to, you know, being a kid, just kind of grabbing that one rod that you got and throwing some baits in your pocket, going to the local pond. So that's what this was all about. It just kind of reminds me of that and having a lot of fun. I caught that. I'm guessing it's probably about 8 pounds, maybe 8.5 pounds. That was a big bass, and I had a big belly, so really enjoyed that. Hopefully you guys are enjoying these videos as much as I am making them for you. You guys take care of yourselves. Until next time, we'll see you again. Just going to the bank with whatever I've got. It was 1 year. First cast, stripped down to my boxer, snagged it, hooked it to that stump. Don't know what they're gonna want today. Orienting to shade lines, slipping in all this mud and duck poo. Conditions get really slow and tough. Oh yeah, it is. It's crazy. It's like crystal clear. Pitching with the spinning rod. We gotta move on, ducks.